idea.
Did he really do it to you?
Hi, Studio Recapped here. Today, we're going to talk about a movie called It Follows in the horror and mystery genres. Spoiler alert is on, watch out and take care. Annie rushes out of her house, looking like she's fleeing for her life. She freezes as the door creaks open, eyes darting nervously. After a tense moment, she lies to her neighbor and father, claiming she's fine. But in a heartbeat, she bolts back outside, car keys in hand, and speeds away. Annie arrives in panic, glancing nervously over her shoulder, ignoring her ringing phone. She stops by the beach, shaking and in tears, and finally answers. Apologizing to her father, she says she loves him, exhausted from running. The next morning, Anne is found dead at the beach, her leg twisted and broken. Jay lounges by the pool, while her sister Kelly invites her to watch a movie. Jay declines, mentioning date later. Once Kelly leaves, Jay teases the boys next door watching her swim. Inside, Kelly enjoys a movie with her friends Paul and Yara. While their mom is at the table, Jay sneaks to her room to prepare for her date. At the theater, Jay teaches Hugh a game she and Kelly play. Hugh picks someone in the crowd, and Jay guesses who. When it's his turn, he points to a girl in a yellow dress, but Jay doesn't see her. Hugh feels a chill of dread. Hugh urges Jay to leave the theater, claiming he's uncomfortable. They continue their date with dinner, and things seem fine despite the earlier tension. The next day, Jay walks with Kelly, giddy about Hugh but still uneasy about his strange behavior at the theater. Jay still suspects Hugh is hiding something, despite his excuse. On their next date, he takes her to a secluded spot where they share a passionate night in his car. But afterward, Hugh chloroforms her. Jay tries to fight back, but he overpowers her and she passes out. Jay wakes up tied to a wheelchair in an abandoned building. Hugh apologizes, explaining that an entity is now following her and it will kill her if it catches her. It used to follow him, but now it's passed on to her. It can look like anyone, even someone she knows. Jay screams for help, still in disbelief, until Hugh drags her to the edge of the building. They see a strange woman approaching. Hugh explains that she must sleep with someone else to pass the entity on, or if it kills her, it will come after him next. Confused and terrified, Jay cries as Hugh drives her away. Meanwhile, Kelly and her friends see Hugh drop Jay off on the road. They rush to help and call cops, who interrogate Jay about what happened. The police can't find Hugh, who used a fake name. Days later, Jay struggles to process everything. In the bathroom, the ball bounces off a window, startling her. She looks out but doesn't see the boy from next door. At school, Jay spots an old woman outside, walking toward her. The old woman feels out of place, but no one else notices. Jay remembers Hugh's warnings and rushes out of class. The entity gets closer and she realizes the others can't see it. Terrified, she drives off to the ice cream shop where she tells Kelly and Paul what happened. They don't believe her, but Paul stays the night to watch over them, joined by Yara. Unable to sleep, Jay joins Paul in the living room. He tries to comfort her, but they're interrupted by the sound of breaking glass. Paul checks the kitchen but finds no one. He heads upstairs to wake Kelly, leaving Jay alone. Jay enters the kitchen and sees a limping woman. Terrified, she runs to her room, screaming. Kelly and Paul try to calm her, convinced no one else is there. Jay, now believing Hugh's story, collapses in fear as Kelly comforts her. Yara knocks on the door and Kelly opens it despite Jay's warning. Jay is relieved until a tall man appears behind Yara. She screams and escapes through the balcony. Outside, Greg spots Jay riding away on a bicycle with her friends and sister calling after her. Jay stops at the playground, nervously watching every movement, fearing the entity will catch her. She freezes when she sees something in the distance, but Paul calls out to her. The group tries to calm her down. Greg arrives, curious about what's going on. Jay is determined to find Hugh for answers. Greg helps and they visit the abandoned house Hugh mentioned. Inside, they find a high school photo of Hugh with a girl. Recognizing the school logo, they trace him to discover his real name, Jeff Redman. Kelly suggests going to the police, but Jay insists on confronting him directly. Jay visits Jeff's real address and meets his mother, realizing the entity had taken her form that night. Jeff apologizes and explains the curse was passed to him after a one-night stand. He urges Jay to pass it on, but her friends remain skeptical. Greg invites them to his family's lake house to escape. While Jay sleeps, Paul contemplates Jeff's suggestion. The next day, Greg teaches Jay to use a revolver. By the shore, the entity takes Zara's form and attacks Jay. Paul, unable to see it, strikes the entity with a lounge chair. The entity releases Jay, shoves Paul back, and they flee to the shed. Jay shoots at it, but it gets back up unharmed. Realizing the gun won't work, she recoils as the entity bangs on the door, creating a hole. Jay waits, expecting the entity to crawl through, but instead Greg peeks in, still doubting her. After he leaves, Jay crawls toward the door, only to see the entity's face through the hole, now resembling the boy next door. Jay crashes the car into a cornfield while the entity pursues her. She wakes up in the hospital with a broken arm, her friends by her side. Hearing footsteps, she panics, thinking the entity has followed her, but it's just a doctor. Relieved, she turns to Greg and, exhausted by everything, decides to pass on the curse, as Jeff suggested. Days later, Greg seems unaffected by the entity, but Jay remains confined to her room, watching his house nervously. One night, she sees someone approaching and breaking the window. She calls Greg, but he doesn't answer. The entity has entered his home. Jay rushes to warn him but arrives too late, watching helplessly as the entity attacks Greg, taking the form of his mother. Devastated and terrified, Jay drives away, knowing she's next. Jay stops near the beach and falls asleep. In the morning, she sees 3 men on a boat and swims toward them. Back home, Paul visits her, offering to take on the curse, but she refuses. He admits his feelings for her and asks why she passed it to Greg. Jay thought he'd be fine since he wasn't scared, but now regrets her choice. Paul, looking around, gets an idea to stop the entity. As they leave, Jay spots it on the roof, disguised as her grandfather. The entity has killed the men from the boat and is now hunting Jay. She, Paul, Ellie, and Yara head to a closed pool to prepare. They set up electrical items around the pool while Jay waits in the water. A thunderstorm rages as they wait. When the entity finally enters, Ellie asks what it looks like, but Jay refuses to answer. Panicked, Jay wants to leave, but Paul encourages her to stay until it enters the water with her. The entity throws electrical items at Jay, causing her to sink. She resurfaces, seeing it now wearing her deceased father's face. Paul, following her directions, shoots at the entity but nearly gets caught. In the chaos, he accidentally shoots Yara in the leg. The entity throws more objects at Jay, hitting her arm. Kelly throws a blanket over it, helping Paul, who shoots it in the head. The entity grabs Jay, pulling her down, but Paul fires again, killing it. Kelly helps Jay out of the pool. Jay checks the pool, seeing blood spraying through water. Afterward, she and Paul share an intimate night. While she sleeps, Paul comes up with a plan to divert the entity. The next day, they walk hand in hand, unaware of the figure following them.